Thank you to Professor Holland and his team for inviting me to speak about the immigration challenge for Europe. The last issue of The Economist this week dedicated a chapter on immigration and entitled it Compassion Fatigue. And this gives, well, the idea of what's happening now in Europe, because since the beginning of 2015, more than 2 million irregular immigrants have been detected in Europe. Of course, there are many more than this. And so this puts a strain on the European enhanced cooperation on migration issues, and it puts at risk the Schengen area free movement agreement between some European Union member countries. But I would like to start by showing you some images, because sometimes images speaks better than words, and I wanted to show you the humanitarian aspects of the migration flows that arrives on the shores of Europe, not just by boat. There is an eastern corridor where people mostly from the Middle East and Central Asia walk by foot, trying to cross the European external borders. And of course, this is a tragedy, because many die in the attempt of crossing the Channel of Sicily by boat, or trying to come from Turkey to Greece by boat. I guess you have seen also very sad images on the newspapers in the last years. This irregular migration started with the Arab Spring in 2011, and increased in 2012. There were 600,000 arrivals. Then there was a lull in arrivals between 2012-2013. So the European institutions were very reluctant to take reforms to face this sudden arrival of millions of people. And the causes of these migrations are, of course, both political and economic. There are mixed flows of asylum claimants and also economic migrants, so-called economic migrants. And of course, only the asylum seekers that are fleeing persecution for political, racial, or religious grounds are entitled to get the status of refugee in Europe. But of course, most of the people arriving are claiming the status of refugee. The causes of these flows are geopolitical. We have upheavals all over the Middle East, Iraq, Syria, the expansion of ISIS, and the famines and droughts in Africa, recently in Somalia and South Sudan. And there are also some pull factors, which are, of course, the unification of families. When I speak of families, I mean that in the sense of African families, which can include all the people living in the same village. If someone of this village is already settled in an European country, of course, he is a pulling factor for all his member of his enlarged family. The distances between the Africa, Middle East, and Europe are very, very reduced. Lampedusa, which is an arrival point for boats, with irregular immigrants, which is the southernmost island in Italy, is just 100 kilometers away from Tunisia. And the same distance lies between the shores of Africa and the Canaries, the Spanish Canaries in the Atlantic Ocean. And the Strait of Gibraltar is just 14 kilometers wide, and the Greek islands in some cases are just 5 kilometers away from the Turkish coast. Of course, there are nets of transnational criminal organization organizing this trafficking of migrants, and tariffs vary from 800 euros to walk by foot between Turkey through Greece towards Austria, to 7,000 euros to be brought by by boat from Turkey to Italy. The smugglers' net advertise themselves through social medias, Facebook, and once you get in touch with them, they correspond with their customers by instant messaging. So it's very difficult to trace them. Okay, this is a sad statistics, sad bookkeeping. It's all the people who died in the Mediterranean trying to cross this 100 kilometers. Between January 2015 and March this year, there were 12,682 verified deaths by drowning, which is a staggering amount of people. And as you saw before on the images, there is not just the people who drown because their unseaworthy boat sinks in the sea. There are also people who die simply by trying to cross the Sahara Desert by foot. It's incredible, but I saw it with my own eyes. When my curriculum was read, it didn't mention that I also was a Libyan desk officer for 2 years between 2002 and 2004. And at the time, Gaddafi was head of government in Libya, and he used the migrants as a blackmail towards the European countries, because Libya at the time was under arms embargo from the European Union. So he sent waves of migrants from sub-Saharan African states through Italy to Europe to blackmail the European countries to cancel, to abolish this arms embargo. And I went on a mission to Libya in the Saharan Desert near the oasis of Kufra, which lies at the southern border of Libya, and I was shown around by the Libyan police. They took me to a place where there were some human bones lying in the desert, and it was people who tried to cross from the Sahel region, arrived to the northern shores of Libya by foot. It's incredible, without sufficient water, and they died by thirst in the desert. So it's really a tragedy. Speaking about the pull factor that drives these people towards Europe, here is the demographic map of the world. You see that the average age in the sub-Saharan Africa is between 20 and 25 years. If you consider North Africa and the Middle East, it's between 20 and 30 years. And the European median age is 42.7 years. By comparison, I think in New Zealand is around 35 years. So there is a need for immigrants in Europe to support the welfare system. It's a question of ratio between contribution done by people who works and used by people who is already retired. So Europe needs young blood.